Councillor Ferguson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I unfortunately couldn't attend this meeting, but through the wonders of modern technology, I was able to watch the discussion through webcasting, even in faraway places like Arizona, and was able to place a couple of questions on the council floor through my colleagues, Councillor Johnson and Councillor Clark, which was kind of neat to watch. Nice. Sitting down there, and I type in a question on my computer, and then I hear it be asked about.
Yeah, we sort of changed it about
2 or 3 minutes later. Unfortunately, I couldn't vote by proxy down there, run an electronic vote in.
Is that a lobbyist?
But this issue started, this enhancement of Route 44, with the delegation from Redeemer University College that come in to ask for enhanced services. And there's 3 enhancements that they were looking for. One was evening service, one was weekend service, and one was weekday service be increased from frequency from 60 minutes to 30 minutes. And of course, the issue I have is transit is still area rated, and a big chunk of this is in Ancaster because Route 44 runs right through Ancaster from Garner Road right up to the industrial park at the western limits of the community. And so I remember posing the question to the Redeemer delegation that of the 3 enhancements, you know, in our line of work, we have to compromise all the time. What's the most important to you? And they said that the evening and weekend service was the most important. And after I returned, I had the opportunity to meet with Don Hall twice, and I met with Jim Doms a couple times also to get my head clearly around what each enhancement costs as it relates to the area rated portion that goes to Ancaster. And I've circulated the email, or the clerk's department circulated the email I received from Jim, so it's on your blotters in front of you. But the enhancement for running evening and weekend services, which is the 2 that Redeemer preferred, which is the same thing I think that Mr. Everson's hearing from the industrial park too, that they have shift change at 11 o'clock. They like to have evening service also. To give enhanced service in evenings and weekends has a cost to a typical Ancaster taxpayer for the area rated part of $4.75. And that's based on a $275,000 home, which is the average price of a home in Hamilton. But unfortunately, in Ancaster, that's probably half the price of an average home. So these numbers I'm going to put out, you can probably double because of the, you know, the average price of a home in Ancaster is in the $500,000 range, according to the latest stats I've seen. But to add the extra 30 minutes through daytime takes it from $4.75 to $14 on a $275,000 home, or 3 times more. And so I'm not comfortable with that, primarily because I think we got to walk before we run. Redeemer's request was to for the evening weekend service. I mean, they'd like the extra frequency also, but their main thing was evenings and weekends. And to go from $4.75 to 14 cents, and I'm staring down another problem because the Memorial School site has also been declared surplus. Council's already passed a resolution. They'd like to buy it, subject to the financial side of it. They pulled the trigger. We have to come up to make a formal offer to them by the end of June. And using the policies used in the past around the council tables, and I've talked to Mike about this and Joe, and they're telling me that a large chunk of this has to be area rated also. So I'm staring down both the bus enhancement and the area and the Memorial School site purchase enhancements. So I'm not comfortable with taking that 3 times the price on to add that 3rd level of service. I have checked with staff, and they tell me that by going back to a 60-minute service for daytime, evening, and weekend can be done just in Ancaster without any impact to the other wards. And of course, the Route 44 affects Stony Creek and across the top of the mountain. I did have the opportunity this afternoon to speak to Councillor Jackson. Unfortunately, Councillor Whitehead and Duvall is not here today, but Tom is a mountain resident. So it has, they'll still get their 30-minute, if I amend this motion, they'll still get the 30-minute service. Just at Glancaster Road and Ancaster, it'll switch over to 60 minutes. So it'll run out to the industrial park once per hour. And, you know, I noticed yesterday also, well, this week, I spotted 2 buses during the day going into the industrial park. And I slowed down, pulled the side of the road just so I could count how many people were on them, and it didn't take long because there was nobody. And so I think I need load counts also before I can make this decision to go from $4 to $14. So at the right time, if you come back to me, I'd like to move an amendment to the enhancements for Route 44 in the Ancaster portion only. If there's no other questions, I'll place that motion now.
I have a speakers list, Councillor Ferguson, so.
Okay, you'll come back to me.
Okay, so I'll come back to you, okay? So just a heads up, I have Councillor Johnson, Councillor Jackson, Councillor McCaddy, and Councillor Clark. So Councillor Johnson, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Pasuda. First, I want to clarify something. It was written in the paper that the Glanbrook residents will be paying for this transit. So I had farmers and people way out in the rural area wondering why they were paying for transit. This is not affecting the rural areas, and it's not affecting several parts of Glanbrook that will never see a bus in a million years. So just to be clear, and I understand that the Redeemer College did have was the catalyst to get this going, but our residents, my residents along Rymal Road have been asking for this service enhancement for quite some time. I want to thank Councillors Jackson and Duval, Whitehead and Clark, because collectively we worked together to get this put on the table and get it working. I just want to put it out there that if we're going to put a service, we might as well put a service that's worthwhile. And having it there 1 hour on the hour and nothing on Saturdays or Sunday, it was just absolutely asinine. So people were not getting used to using the transit. The ones that had to find rides on the weekends to get to their part-time jobs. We have a lot of students that were going to Mohawk College, couldn't get to Mohawk College, or if they missed that one bus, they'd have to wait for an hour for the next one. So I'm pleased to support this. It's not as much money in Glanbrook as it is for the Ancaster folks, but I'm pleased to support this, and thankfully all 5 of the councillors came together and made this work for the entire stretch along Rymal. There's 6 wards that are affected. So anyways, this is great. Now people on Hannon can actually get down to Eastgate Square and move from there. So thank you very much, sir, for your time.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Councillor Jackson, please.
Thanks, Mr. Deputy Mayor. And after all my years supporting public transit and public transit enhancements for the lower city, B-line, student passes, this is a sweet moment. But I just want to reiterate, all my years of supporting public transit in the lower city, for some who may not be aware of that, I just wanted to get that on the record, Deputy Clerk. So this is a sweet moment tonight. We're finally going to have some public transit enhancements on the mountain. Mr. Deputy Mayor, through to General Manager Davis, you've heard Councillor Ferguson's amendment he'd like to put in light of mitigating costs into the area rated Ancaster area. So if you've heard his amendment, does that mean if we support that amendment at the Lancaster-Garner Road intersection and beyond into Ancaster into Tradewind Drive, the weekday running time would stay at 1 hour? Mr. Deputy Mayor, through to General Manager Davis.
Jerry, please.
Through the Deputy Mayor, that's correct. So the base in the evening, as was described, will go to the 60 minutes as was indicated by the councillor.
So, Jerry, so then from Garner Road and Lancaster going eastward and looking after my mountain colleagues tonight, one sadly, Councillor Duval, who lost a sister on the weekend, and Councillor White, who has not been well since the weekend. So on their behalf, but not speaking for them, but on their behalf as pushing for this, from Garner, Lancaster, going eastward across the whole mountain into Upper Stony Creek, Councillor Clark's area, Councillor Johnson's Ward 11, down into Councillor Collins' Ward 5. The running time will then be increased, made better to 30 minutes. Jerry, through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Deputy Mayor, that's correct. It will stay at 30 minutes from Eastgate Square to the Lancaster-Garner intersection.
And we'll get weekend service on Rymal for the first time with this resolution here tonight, Jerry?
Through the Deputy Mayor, that's correct.
And we'll get enhanced evening service, Jerry, on Rymal?
Through the Chair, that's correct.
And we're going to also get, which I'm really pleased about, some enhanced service on Stone Church Road, east to west, going right across from Councillor Clark's area across the mountain wards, which is wonderful because a lot of people for work as well as school travel across. We need affordable transit for those, especially coming to work in the Red Hill Business Park and or for family outings, whatever the case might be. And we'll also have an extra bus going to the waterfront, which is becoming more and more popular all the time as well. So, Mr. Deputy Mayor, I really would have preferred that Councillor Ferguson had left the original motion as it was. I really wish she had left it as it was. However, I understand the almost a triple cost, I guess. It would be from Garner to Lancaster to his Tradewind Park to make the running time 30 minutes. I'm very, very happy we're going to have additional public transit. I'll tell you the reaction from my constituents over the last few weeks has been very positive to hear this. So we've got something more than we ever had before. I wish it had stayed the way it was from March 20th. But if Councillor Ferguson wants to support this, but that extra amount in his area alone is going to cause some additional financial hardship, I'm keeping an open mind, and I'm saying I just want to get some additional amount in public transit for my community. And on behalf of Councillor Whitehead and Duval. Thanks, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Councillor McCaddy, please.
Thanks, Mr. Deputy Mayor. And this was really a great day at General Issues Committee meeting to spend this kind of funding, $1.19 million on transit service level improvements. And you know, it's the first time in 10 years that Council has actually spent allocated levy dollars for transit improvements. In the past, we've made some improvements, but it's always provincial gas tax funding. But this is the first time we've actually asked our residents to step up through our actions to support transit improvements. So it was just an extraordinary day, and as I recall, universal support by councillors who were there that day, which I think was almost unanimous. Most of the councillors, with Councillor Ferguson being away at that point, not able to attend other than remotely through computer and that sort of thing. And you know, just in the ensuing couple of days, I heard from Redeemer University students, and they were ecstatic by the commitment that we'd made, the full commitment to the 30-minute service. You know, 60-minute service is just not adequate. One bus an hour is not what the mountain should expect. They should expect more than that. The folks heading towards the Ancaster Business Park, although Councillor Ferguson may not have seen anyone on the bus in his analysis, the one bus that he looked at, you know, I think there are folks that do take the bus to the Ancaster Business Park. Great paying jobs, but some of them are such that folks may not have vehicles, and they've got to take the bus, and of course they choose to take the bus in many cases to their jobs. But remember that day, the Redeemer University students were just so excellent in explaining why they needed service during the week and the weekday, the 30-minute service. They're wonderful students, right? Because they go all the way down to the lower city, and they get very active in lower city projects all throughout the lower city. That day that we had this discussion, the Beasley neighborhood folks were here. You remember there was a representative from Beasley neighborhood, and originally I was saying, why is he here? But he was here to say the Redeemer students with the ability to travel down to the lower city make a huge difference working on community projects, improvement projects, really making a difference in the lower city. And that's exactly what we want to see, connecting the upper city to the lower city, connecting Ancaster to the lower city and vice versa. And this service, the 30-minute service, provides that to us. I know that through the area rating system, which we currently have, and I know in next term of council we're going to try and tackle the area rating policy for transit, but not until the next term of council. The Ancaster residents are asking to be paid to pay more for transit. These improvements that we're making here in the 2014 budget. I know that's a big commitment for the Ancaster residents, but I haven't heard from any that are concerned, quite frankly, and I have heard from a lot of Redeemer University students on how happy and ecstatic they are in getting this service. I think they deserve it. They've got a universal bus pass. They're buying into transit in a big way, supporting our HSR budget, as McMaster students are, as Mohawk students are. And this investment, the first time in 10 years that Council's made this investment with levy dollars into transit, I think we need to stay the course on the 30-minute service. 60 minutes is just not good enough for the Ancaster and Mountain residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McCaddy. Councillor Clark, please.
Thank you. Can I just ask a couple of quick questions, because I'm still trying to visualize this in my mind. So the bus would stop At what street? How far does it go? And then it starts as an hour service as opposed to every 30 minutes?
Jerry, please.
Through the chair. So there'll be a bus every hour that will go from Eastgate Square right to the Ancaster Industrial Business Park. There'll be buses that will leave Eastgate on a 30-minute cycle that will go to the intersection of Garner and Rymal Road. They will loop there and then head back. And that'll be a 30-minute cycle.
Help me out with distance, if you can, the distance from Garner and Rymal to the business park.
Through the chair, I don't have that information.
Is it a short walk?
Through the chair, I'll have to come back with the information. I don't know the distance.
Can I ask Councillor Ferguson? He would probably be closest to be able to.
Councillor Ferguson?
No, it's not a short walk from the intersection of Lancaster and Garner. It's probably 10 kilometers to the industrial park.
Okay, thank you. That helps. And the businesses that are in the Ancaster Business Park, rhyme off a few of them just so that we understand what's going on.
Through Mr. Deputy Mayor, probably the largest employer is Stackpole, followed by Activation Labs. Anderson Water Systems is there. DT, expanding and growing. And there's probably at least another 20 in there, but those are the largest employers.
And so hypothetically, one of my constituents gets on the bus on Rymal and gets ready to go to work and then gets off the bus at Garner and Rymal and stands there for 30 minutes?
Through the chair, the buses will be, they'll have the identifier. So if it's going just to the Lancaster-Garner intersection, it'll be indicated. If it's going to the Ancaster Industrial Business Park, that will be indicated. So for somebody who would have to have the 60-minute bus, it'll be indicated on that bus. It won't just say you have to get off here and turn around. HSR will identify the buses for the different routes.
And has there been consultation with the businesses that set up there? I'm assuming they're using younger people or people that are taking the bus.
Through the chair, I don't have any knowledge of that.
Okay, I have trepidations. I hear what Councillor Ferguson is saying, but I can tell you it was incredibly frustrating in Upper Stony Creek having young people come to work and then on Sunday they had to stand there or get a taxi because there were no buses. In this case, it'll be 60 minutes of standing there. Doesn't matter what time of year it is. 60 minutes of standing there waiting for a bus. Not sure that's what the people who put those plants in there, they can all come down to Stony Creek, I guess. We've got lots of room, but I'm just worried about those residents who don't have the money for a car. How do they get to work? And what condition are we leaving in? This was supposed to alleviate that, so I understand the cost, most definitely. I can see that, but I'm a little bit nervous about what we're doing here. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Councillor Marula, please.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. And let me start off by saying that I respect where Councillor Ferguson is coming from, and I understand that he's trying to mitigate some of the costs, but I need to grasp what those costs actually are per household. So through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, to staff, what would the difference be between what is being proposed versus what Councillor Ferguson is proposing per household for Ancaster?
Mike, if you can, please.
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, what was approved at GIC with respect to Route 44, the increase would amount to $14, and the amendments being deliberated this evening would reduce that to $4.75.
Okay, so it's about a third. But on average in Ancaster, what is the average household taxation in Ancaster? I know citywide it's about 3,000 or 3,500, but in Ancaster, what is the average? All three of my sisters live there, so I know it's high, but... I'm sorry? Three? I have three sisters. Yeah.
Just a moment, we're trying to look it up here. Hey, Councillor?
Mr. Deputy Mayor, we have the assessed value. We don't have what the average local tax impact is.
The average taxation in the city of Hamilton is 3,000, is that correct?
For you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, yes.
Okay. So citywide is 3,000, but I know in Ancaster it's much more than that. So we're talking about the extreme. I know in some cases it's up as high as $10,000 a household for taxes at the municipal level. So what we're really dealing with here is really a very minor amount of money per household. And then knowing a lot of the Ancaster residents, most of them are either transplanted Hamiltonians or coming in from Toronto, my family included, and knowing that their ability to pay or the affordability issue is not ever an issue for those that I know there anyway, and recognizing that public transit, it has more to do, I think, in Ancaster with the business community than it does the local residents, in that you have people traveling to the inner city, to Ancaster, particularly the industrial park that was built, that don't have means to their own transportation, that rely on public transit. So in essence, I see this as more of an economic development cost, which obviously benefits the entire city, including those that live in Ancaster. So in looking at this through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, how many people are actually traveling on public transit, where they're coming from, and their destination spot? I can assure you that the vast majority going into Ancaster will be going to their place of employment. And the reason why they developed their place of employment in Ancaster is for a number of reasons, whether it be the expressway, whether it be other means of transportation, but also because of our public transportation hub. So this is more to do, I think, with the business community than it does with neighborhoods or local residents, and something that we collectively benefit from. Even Rob Ford sees the value in public transit. He wants subways. He's willing to spend billions on subways. All we're asking for is really an extension to Ancaster's industrial parks, particularly, so that people can access their place of employment, but also looking at the social and environmental and all the other benefits to public transit. Build it and they shall come. And at the end of the day, what comes first is building a transportation network from a public perspective that entices not only those that work in Ancaster, but ultimately those that live there to access it as well. And speaking intimately, knowing the number of people that live in Ancaster, I think they would do it if it's a reliable service. And this initiative to downgrade it doesn't make it reliable. It makes it unreliable, which makes it unsustainable. And for that, I can't support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Merle. I believe I have Councillor Ferguson.
Yeah, I found it interesting. We're having a big debate in my amendment, and I haven't put it yet. But I'd be happy to do that now if you're ready, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Councillor Ferguson, you want to put it forward then?
Yeah, I move that the enhancement, and I want to repeat, there is an enhancement in here. There's some misinformation flying around that I'm saying no to everything. I'm giving 2 out of the 3. I move that the enhancement for the Route 44 bus route through Ancaster, stress that point, which is from Garner to the Industrial Park, include the evening and weekend service. So don't say there's no enhancement, but that the 30-minute interval component remain the same service level as currently in place, which is 60-minute. And if I can draw a second to that, I'll speak to it.
You have a seconder?
I'll second it to allow.
Councillor Powers?
First of all, The $14 is based on a $265,000 assessment. You can assume it will be at least double that based on the assessed value in Ancaster. And the people of Ancaster are also paying about $10,000 a year, and they're taxed out. They've had enough. It's the #1 issue for me during my last election campaign. Why do you think I'm frugal Fergie around this table? Because that's the message they're giving me. Cut costs, watch the dollars. And what I want to do is walk before I run. So let's try these 2 enhancements, and let's measure the uptake. One thing I wasn't able to get from staff when I've asked questions about was what's the load count? How many people are actually going out there? How many people are using it? Because I watched the bus service has been running for years through Wilson Street, and most of the time those buses run empty. And I'm not sure what the reason for enhancing the system if there is no need. I know it's a chicken and egg thing, but I want to do this in small steps. So if there's big uptake, and we are enhancing and giving evening service to people like Stackpole who run shifts, or ACT Labs who run shifts, so there'll be the service at 11 o'clock when the shift changed, which they don't have now. I'm agreeing to that. And I heard the statement say that there's been no increase to service in Ancaster on the rate on the levy for 10 years. Wrong. We started bus service to the industrial park 3 years ago, and I thought, it's the right thing to do for the whole city. So let's start the bus service going to the park, even though Ancaster pays 100% of the cost from Lancaster Road in for about 10 kilometers. And maybe some members of council haven't heard from the people of Ancaster, but I have. Loud and clear. They're annoyed because they won't use it. And why are we paying for it? And they already, since they're paying an average of about $10,000 a year in taxes, think that they're taxed out. And so I'm listening to my constituents. That's my job. And they're telling me very clearly that they don't want an enhancement that they have to pay for to take this bus service. So I want to do it in baby steps. And once again, I'm repeating myself, but I got Memorial School coming in May, and that's going to be another big hit to area reading for my community, for something my community does want. So I don't want to take this all off in one chunk. Next year, look, if Jim tells me that the load counts are good out to that park, there's big uptake, then fine, I'll move to the next step. But let's do it one step at a time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. And on that, I have Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate Councillor Ferguson clarifying his comments. I'm reminded that when we started talking about these enhancements, that Councillor Jackson and I, we were talking about, we'd love to have everything that is on the document, and it was a very colorful slide. But we also were aware that it was not feasible to jump to that point all at once. Was going to create significant burdens for many people, and we really don't know what each burden is across the municipality. Some may not have any financial burdens, and I wish I was one of those people, but others do have financial burdens. And so we never know what happens when we increase taxes, and that's why we've been so strong and hard-headed about trying to minimize the tax increases across the municipality. So Councillor Jackson and I were willing to accept it as a phased-in because we're getting service in Rymal, we're getting service in Stone Church. It was service that he's been arguing for before my time, and for 8 years I've been arguing, and it's been slow, incremental, methodical increase in transit to the residents. They've understood it. For those who don't use it, I think they were appreciative of the slower approach, but ultimately everyone could see where we were headed. We were wanting to increase the amount of transit in the community. So tonight I'm fine supporting Councillor Ferguson's amendment because he's doing the same thing. He's simply doing the same thing as what Councillor Jackson and I suggested, was to phase it so that his community can get used to it, and as we move forward, we can add more on each year or each other year or whatever the case is. But I think everyone understands that we have to improve transit for the entire community of Hamilton, not just for certain areas. And so we are moving in that direction. And I thank the colleagues for helping and supporting Councillor Whitehead and Duval, myself and Jackson, and then Councillor Johnson and Councillor Ferguson, because this is a significant route. Actually even goes down through Councillor Collins' area the Highway 20 run. So I appreciate that. I appreciate the concerns that Councillor Ferguson is making forth today. And I think it's a pragmatic approach. So I will support him on his amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. No further speakers on this. So Councillor Ferguson's amendment, seconded by Councillor Powers. Standing recorded vote. All in favor of the amendment?
Deputy Mayor Pasuda, Councillors Clark, Pearson, Johnson, Ferguson, Powers, Partridge, and Jackson.
Those opposed?
Mayor Bertina, Councillors Collins, Marula, Farr, and McCaddy.
Amendment carries, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Carries. Okay. And item 4 as amended.